Mitch Gallagher. Welcome to the Sweetwater Minute. This time out, a special guest is joining us. Steven Slate is here. Great to see you, my friend.
Always great to see you, Mitch.
Oh, thank you very much, and we appreciate you being here. You were doing a morning meeting, showing off some of the new stuff from NAMM.
Yeah.
And lots of incredible things there. Man, I have to tell you, it's been really fascinating to watch because I first met you how many years ago when you had a small booth with some drum sounds in the Hall E?
That would be 11 years ago.
11 years ago was the first time I met you, and to watch the way the company's progressed. Tell us a little bit about that progression. How did was there a grand plan, or how did that work?
I don't think there was ever really a grand plan. I just think it was one of those things where I kept on wanting to face new challenges, and once you kind of catch the bug of creating product, and I think you just want to keep going and want to do more and want to discover, well, what else can I do to help musicians and pro audio engineers? What else can I create that's going to help them make better music? And I think once I got on that path, and it started with a few drum samples on a CDR.
Right.
That was the first product. Steven Slate Drums 1. It was on a CDR, and I had a girlfriend at the time write with a Sharpie, my phone number and email. And that was it. That was product number one, and now we're making crazy interfaces and touchscreens. But yeah, once I got on that path, I became really passionate about it and fascinated by it, and trying to discover what else I could create and what else I could do. And yeah, it's been a fun journey since those days in Hall E in the basement of NAMM, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt, no doubt. And you have a background as a recording engineer, producer, and as a musician as well, correct?
I do. The musician part it's a little shady. I consider myself one of those guys who's a jack of all trades but a master of none. I can play most any instrument, just only with mediocrity. As a recording engineer, I think I'm pretty good. That one I'm pretty proud of, and I've done some. Before I got really heavy into the manufacturing side, I did a lot of great records. I had a little underground studio in Boston. I worked at many different studios and worked with a lot of great musicians and had a lot of experience in that part. But,
right. How did you learn that craft?
I started actually when I was I think 13 or 14. And of course, it starts off. You don't think any young man at that age or a young woman just decides, oh, I'm going to become a recording engineer. I didn't know what a recording engineer was. I did know what a rock star was. Sure. Because I remember watching these VHS tapes of the Beatles running and getting chased by crowds of girls, and I go, well, that looks like a cool career. And so I started playing. I started playing guitar and forming a band, and then at some point, you record, you write these songs, and then you got to record these little crappy songs. And that's when I discovered, okay, I got to figure out how to record these things. And my first ever entry into recording was a Yamaha cassette 4-track.
Nice.
I'm sure a lot of people out there have had one of those things,
sure.
And if you haven't, you're lucky. I've got people emailing our support because of some plugin thing here and there. I'm like, man, the plugin I had was a Alesis MIDI verb. That was my only plugin back when I started, you little brat. But anyway, I'm kind of digressing here. Right. But so I started with that, and as I got older, all my resources got pooled into audio, and then I started working at. I grew up in northern New Jersey, which is a 25-minute train ride to Manhattan. So I was able to sneak out to Manhattan after school and work in a few different studios, interning here and there, and got to see some pretty amazing sessions, and really kind of dove into the world of the recording studio. So I dove in really early at an early age. I learned old school analog techniques from cutting, editing tape, to early electronics, recapping consoles. I mean, these are the kind of things that when a 17-year-old, 16-year-old kid comes in your place, what can we have him do? That's right. Take the next 4 or 5 days to recap this whole entire console. Right. But it was great. I loved it. I ate it right up.
Sure. Well, I think what that translates to is and what I've seen with your products is they all tend to be musical and have the engineer and the musician in mind at the end. Whether it was the way that your drum samples, your drum libraries are set up to be kind of record ready right out of the package, as we were talking about a little bit earlier before we started this video. But even things like your hardware processors and the Raven and the new modeling stuff, as I see that usability as a big part of what Slate is bringing to the table.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole aspect of a lot of the stuff we're doing is kind of like I wanted to break down the barriers between, the elitism of the recording studio and guys who just really want to have access to tools to make music. Because, again, being that young intern and being able to be exposed to all these amazing studios and amazing tools that helped create such great music, obviously all these tools were so out of reach.
Right.
And I kind of despise that because, you know, you lust after these things that you can't have, and, you know, and wouldn't it be nice to just have it? You know, like, why can't we drive the Ferrari? You know, why don't we deserve, like, you know, you're a nice guy, I'm a nice guy. Why can't we just drive Lamborghinis?
I think we should.
Exactly. So, I mean, you know, in terms of the audio world, I'm trying to give guys those Lamborghinis without having to pay that Lamborghini price, and you know, because it's fun. You know, it's just fun, and you can do a lot of creative things with it, like our mic system. You know, it's a cool feeling the first time you mic up, you know, an entire band with our little ML2s. And then in post and in the mix, you just start, you know, cycling through the different mic models. You go, oh, well, that one sounds really good in the kick. Oh, well, this one for this song, that makes the snare pop in the way I pictured it in my head. You know, there's something to that. And in order to do that, you know, back in the day, you'd need to have all of these mics. Some, of course, which are extremely expensive. You know? So.
Right.
You know, what I like to consider our products are products that are professional products, because we make sure the quality of our products are about as pro as we can make them, but at an accessibility that most people can afford. You know, so I'd be happy if I could, you know, if I see, you know, our new interface in a top commercial facility, maybe with a stack of 4 of them, and also in a home studio in a bedroom with, you know, 1 or 2 stacks. I mean, they're really, the quality can be fit for a pro situation, but the price allows it to be way more accessible. Right.
So you mentioned the new small microphone. The mic system is really very impressive how accurately it can recreate those vintage microphones. Take us through the process of how you go from the vintage example to the finished models.
It really starts with the hardware reference mics, you know, the ML1 and the ML2, and these are designed in a very specific way. You know, there's a lot involved with their response, how they handle proximity, and making sure that we have this very well-known reference. And then we have a procedure that took us years to perfect, which allows us to recreate all the different attributes that make microphones sound the way they do. Because remember, what's our end goal? At the end of the day, you know, we can only do so much with the physics, but the good news is all we got to do is fool these stupid human ears into thinking that this thing sounds like this thing. You know, and it's not easy to do, but it's easier to do than some people might think. And we can do some techniques, and I don't want to say cheap. There are certain things we can do to make, you know, our models sound like the microphones that they're modeling. That's the point. I mean, what else do you need from there? And yeah, I mean, we have certain techniques of obviously putting lots of data into both microphones and being able to determine the discrepancy between the data that goes into our reference and what's coming out of the modeled mic. And it's a long process. It's getting a little bit easier, but you know, there's a lot of stuff that's happening, and you know, we have some of the best DSP engineers, you know, in the planet, led by our CTO Fabrice Gabriel, and we're able to, you know, recreate very complex nonlinearities, very complex, you know, resonances, dynamic frequency responses, all of these things, you know, as we start to, you know, pile on, you know, under this foundation, after you keep on going further and further, more data. Okay, we're hearing discrepancy here. Okay, well, this sounds the same, but as soon as we put this big bass signal in, now we're hearing discrepancies here. As you keep building these blocks, it just starts to just come together to the point where, like, okay, now I keep putting all these sources in the mics. I'm going on axis, I'm going off axis, I'm going proximity, far and near, and it just keeps sounding the same. You know, and that's what you find. And when we get to that point, I go, okay, it's done. Let's release it.
Right. That's amazing to me. It's hard for me to fathom how someone can translate what we hear in the response of something in the real world into code.
Yeah, of course.
And make that actually work. It's
still
beyond my understanding.
It still kind of shocks me to this day that what we can accomplish, you know.
Right.
Especially, you know, coming from that analog world and working so much in it, and you know. But now that I know a lot more about the science of how it works, it makes a lot more sense to me. But it still fascinates me.
Right. And as a user, basically, you're presented with a very, very similar user interface to what you'd have with the physical products, whether it's the microphones or I love your 500 series, your virtual 500 series rack, and you load in the different modules. But the controls and things are so similar that it's a very analog experience, if you will, working with those.
Yeah, and that's the point. I mean, the point is to get inspired and have a workflow that just makes you want to keep making music. You know, I love the 500 series rack plugin too, because, you know, I can load up one single plugin instance and have multiple processors that are responsible for the tone of that track all on the the screen in front of me. And I find it much faster workflow that way. So it's like, okay, well, the snare, needs a little more brightness and also a little less compression. So with one button, I load the virtual mix rack up there. I take a little more on top end of the FGN EQ, and then I can reduce the threshold a little bit to ease up on the compression, and it's just all right there. Right. I'm not having to do multiple clicks. I think that's kind of where I was going with that system. Really to build your, dream channel strip and have it right there in front of you.
Right. Yeah, very cool. I see you reaching up there, which brings me to my next part of the workflow conversation,
this
which
is
is the virtual
mix,
Raven, right?
For sure, yeah.
So tell us about the whole concept
I can't mix like this anymore. That just doesn't work for me. Well, listen, we spent 20 years going from, this whole analog world to putting the whole entire recording studio on a computer screen. So, to me, the most logical way to manipulate the recording studio now that it is on a computer screen is to reach out and touch the screen. And it just works so well. I've got 24 faders in front of me. I've got plugins. I can touch any plugin, tweak any plugin. I never have to map any little Logic controllers. There's no mapping errors or anything like that. It just works, and it's so fast. The Raven to me was like one of those things where it just makes sense. In some companies, their mindset is still kind of, to me, what I would, in my biased opinion, consider old school, where they want to take stuff off the screen and put it back to hardware, but it's still connecting, virtually with the screen. No, get that out of my way. Let me just touch what's going on the screen and start going. To me, that's why the Raven has really been so successful as of lately, because people are just realizing it just makes sense. It's the most logical way for the best workflow. Right.
At NAMM, you introduced the Core 2.
Yeah.
Tell us about that. What is the idea behind having two displays?
Well, the Core Station is really about the fact that right now out of the box of the Core Station, because it's really not just even about the two screens, it's also that it comes in this console enclosure. So it's just ready to go. It's like you buy, now you're not just buying touchscreens, you're buying a console. And it's got a shelf there for your keyboard, your mouse. You can put a Slate control in there for monitoring. So you can get it in one or two configurations. So you can get one MTI or two MTIs. But to me, it was just about having more of a turnkey package, where now, rather than just buying MTI, now you're buying a console. It looks like a console. You can put speakers on it like a console. It's a really all-inclusive package to get into the control surface.
Right. Watching this morning, you brought a band in. And all people who work at Slate. So you had drums, bass, guitar, and
I got some talented guys.
No doubt. And you had a Core Station set up on stage, and one of your guys was engineering right there.
Sure.
And just watching that flow and how easily that all worked really brought it home.
Sure.
That this is a real-time type of a thing.
Oh yeah, it's fast, it's quick, and it's intuitive. Everyone knows how to work their own DAW, so now just axe the mouse and just reach out and touch stuff. So, the ability to, get accustomed and acclimated to the Raven is pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's next? Can you give us any hints?
We're pretty excited right now about the vmr-e, the new interface and the new modeling mics and where that's going to take us. And obviously there's going to be probably a path of products, in that space. So that's what I can discuss now. What's next? We have a partnership with Pearl with the Mimic Pro drum module, which is going to be incredible. It also has a little touchscreen on it, because you can tell I like touchscreens.
Sure.
Who knows? This is one of those industries that moves so fast.
Right.
My brain moves pretty fast when I have ideas too. So it's like, in a year from today, we can have a whole different product that I thought of on the plane ride home from Fort Wayne.
I hope so. It'd be exciting.
Yeah, me too.
And actually, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention the new the vintage delays plugin and the vintage reverb plugins, which I've been using a lot of my own mixes,
great.
and I think those are really, really stellar products.
Oh, great.
Did you actually have all of those different hardware boxes there, and you were working through all those?
At one point, if you looked at my old office, my old studio room, it was just covered with vintage delays. And as you know, some of those things aren't so small. Right. If you ever seen one of those Cooper things, it's a big piece of gear there. So at one point, you literally would open the door and be like one of those kind of gags where everything delays just fall on you. But it was really cool, because before that plugin, I didn't really know that much about delays. For some reason, I had the delays had eluded me. I knew the PCM 42. That was the one I used a lot, and I had one of those. And the studio I worked at had 4 or 5 of those. But it just was one of those things I don't know. I escaped it. And as soon as I started playing around with them and throwing them on tracks, it's so inspiring how creative you can get with all these different delay tones. So now to throw them all in one plugin has been loads of fun. And honestly, I'm becoming a better producer and songwriter because of it. I always tell people, you're always learning. You're always learning. You never stop learning this craft. You're always learning. So my biggest learning experience the last year or two has been creative use of delays and what it can do for my music, and it's awesome.
Nice, nice. Well, I hope we'll hear some of your music soon.
Me too.
Gotta get some projects going.
I'm trying. I'm working on it.
Look forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you, Mitch.
Great to see you.
Appreciate
you taking time
thanks.
today. And thank you for joining me for the Sweetwater Minute. I'm Mitch Gallagher.